Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Dev Chat here.
What is this?
It's been a weird week. Welcome to the Dev Chat here at Privateer Press, March 18th, 2020.
Yes.
I'm Will Hungerford, lead developer. This is my boss and master, Schoonover, development manager. And we're here to talk to you today about upcoming mini crate stuff, fun things happening at Privateer, but mainly Monsterpocalypse. Mm-hmm. So before we get into that, if you're joining us for the first time, here's the stream schedule. Boop. Every Wednesday, 10 a.m., Dev Chat, where we, the developers, talk about things going on in the game and preview new rules. I do believe next week might be Riot Quest, which means we might be showing off some new War Machine and Hordes rules for those models and the new Riot Quest models.
Yeah. If we're in the office next week.
If we're in the office next week.
If we're not sheltering in place.
Yes, we'll see. Get your paint on Thursdays with Jordan Lamb, where Jordan gets on and paints the miniatures we make.
Yep, Jordan's going to be painting more Continuum models tomorrow. So the
nice.
Scourge Warjack was on last week's show, and we're painting up a bunch of stuff for our Staff Showdown, which is the next thing on the schedule.
I was going to say,
and so Jordan's got some Reavers and a Marauder and a Grafter and a whole bunch of stuff.
Because Friday we are playing a Warcaster Staff Showdown. You and I going, so I got the first one. It was tie the second game. Mm-hmm. So now you need to win this one so that we have a perfect tie across the series.
So the more important question, though, is I've played Marcher Worlds twice now.
Yes.
And we're playing Continuum versus Marchers.
Though we've played them a lot. I mean, you've played them twice on stream.
That's what I mean. Like, so far on the streams, I have played Marchers twice. I like the Continuum better.
Yeah.
But I will continue playing Marchers if you want.
No.
And you can play all new models.
No.
Or I'll play them and switch, and then you'll play the Marchers for the first time on the stream.
I only care about Iron Star Alliance.
Sure, but they're not in this game, so...
Wait, I can't play Iron Star Alliance in this, Tony? What have you done?
It's Marcher Worlds versus Continuum. I'm painting an extra Ranger Fire team so that we have 8 units.
So I got to play either Filthy Scavengers or Gothy Cyber Boys.
Yeah, those both sound really, really, really great. I don't know what your problem is.
I want to play the Law.
Well,
I want to be the Alliance. We're here for your protection. Anyway, we'll be doing that, and then on April 3rd is the next Hobby Hangout with Danny Samuels and Brian McLaughlin, where they're going to go over all the cool ways to do hobby kits, terrain making, conversions, and stuff like that.
Yep.
If you are watching us on Twitch, you can subscribe, and subscriptions have been rolling in. We blew past the Riot Quest loot coin.
Oh yeah, we got that, and we got the 150 really, really fast after that.
We unlocked the center up emote, which if you watch Get Your Paint On, you can spam this emote now whenever Jordan and the guest are not centered on the camera.
Yeah, they still won't see it in the chat because they don't really notice the chat because they're staring at their models painting, but it'll make you feel better.
Yes, it will make you feel better. And we're not that far away from the next one. It's a mystery. What could it be? Dun, dun, dun.
Anything.
So, moving on to Mini Crate. Over on the War Machine and Hordes side of things at mini-crate.com, you have until tomorrow.
Yeah, one more day.
To get the Gremlin Spring Break Party. And you still, if you do a 6-month sub, you have quite some time left on Double O to break because she just rolled over.
Yeah.
On the Legend of the Five Rings side of things, Shiba's Kune is available till April 5th. So we still got about 2.5 weeks left on her. And Tengu Sensei is still your...
Tengu Sensei still has 2 months.
Yeah, Tengu Sensei still has a good amount of time, but if you do a 6-month sub anytime during the process, biggity bam. Over on the Savage Mini Crate side of things, we have a new model.
This one, I like this one a lot.
We have Cull, which if you've read any of Robert E. Howard stuff, kind of before Conan, before Solomon Kane, there was Cull the Conqueror, Cull the King. Yeah. He was, I'm not going to say prototype Conan, but he was like one of the original sort of that style of just barbarian fantasy hero.
Yeah.
And great looking model. If you do the 6-month sub, you will also get Red Sonja in your next shipment. Mm-hmm. Also, on things that are running out of time, we have 61 hours left on the Kickstarter for Warcaster.
Yep, that's what my phone just told me. So I think it's true.
If you are on the fence, getting close to the time to make the decision, if you're looking to add more to your pledge, now's the time to do so. We are at $383,000. So we've got some really good unlocks at like the 400, 425 level. So hoping we can push through and get to that before it's all said and done. But yeah, go check out warcaster.com if you look at miniatures, fluff, and rules, and then you can find a link to the Kickstarter from there. Okay. So before I let you talk for this whole show,
Yeah, before I just go.
because before you just go, you just have to get up and walk out.
Not,
You'd be
not
like,
go that way.
handle the Monpoc.
Go this way.
Before Oz shows rules previews of some sweet new Monpoc stuff coming up, real fast bit of War Machine news. So next month, we had planned to do the Steamroller 2020 CID for Steamroller 2020 to release the week after Lock and Load. Obviously, things are weird right now.
These are real weird.
The current climate is very different than what we're all used to, and it would be terribly irresponsible of us to run a CID where we tell people to go gather in big groups and play test, or go to their local stores, because a lot of local stores host CIDs, and a lot of local stores are still selling, but their public play spaces are not available right now.
Yeah.
So the Steamroller 2020 CID is, for the time being, delayed. It's hard to say when it will occur because things are changing rapidly.
Yeah. When we know more, we will have more to talk about.
Exactly. But there's a very high chance you're not going to see it in April. You'll see it when it's available and when it's safe for us to host such a thing, which means the release of Steamroller 2020 is likely not going to be the week after Lock and Load anymore. It will be the appropriate amount of time after the CID that we can have it all edited, laid out, proofed, and ready to go. So just bear with us. And
everything's a little crazy right now.
Yes.
We're just not going to focus on Steamroller and making people's lives even more complicated by asking them to play a game with other people when they're supposed to stay 6 feet apart from them.
And that's also an easier one to push back because it's not like a model release that's on a schedule. That those are all still shipping out and stuff like that. It's not like a CID for upcoming things like the new Legion and the new Troll stuff that is luckily later this year because that means we might have a little bit more time where we can get people back together and testing. But like all of you at home, we have to play it by ear and see what happens every day and just be responsible and stay safe and try and stay as much social distance as possible.
Yeah, Tony, can we get a curtain installed right here of some sort?
I'm good. So
Can you?
I don't know what the problem is.
Can we put some sort of plastic hazmat type sheeting somewhere in this area?
That also brings up one last thing. You saw the stream schedule earlier and all the plans we have. Obviously, Washington State in particular, the first hit of the virus was here, and I think we've got some of the most cases in the area. So there's a good likelihood that there's a shelter-in-place order given in Washington, which if that happens, we'll let you know.
Yeah, there are places in California that are being a little bit more harsh about the rules than here, but there's a lot of talk of any moment now the governor might say, okay, only leave your home if it's absolutely necessary, and as much as you guys love us, this show is not as necessary as a bunch of other things.
So yeah. Point being, we're just playing it by ear, keeping up with the news, and just doing what's right to keep everybody, all of you with the CID delays, and all of us coming into stream healthy and safe. So
we'll just do this show like from our own homes. We'll just like YouTube it, the YouTube style. We'll just Skype in. The audio will be all terrible because Tony won't actually control it. People's internet connections will fail. Cameras will be out of focus. It'll be great.
And before we get into the official segment and talk about Monpoc, just a real fast message to all of you watching right now. We do hope that you are safe and that you are healthy, and we hope that you are doing well. And for those of you that are working from home or have had recent stresses over this, we hope you're okay.
Yeah.
We're all in this together, so let's just do it. Let's talk about the apocalypse with giant monsters.
Giant monster apocalypse instead of tiny, tiny monster apocalypse. Woo! Okay, so we've got models, card stuff to show off for next month. So, Tony went in the wrong order.
No.
Oh no, and Tony's spoiling everything.
What is happening right now?
Okay.
What is...
So we're not going to start with that, but there you got a little preview of what else we're going to talk about today. So March.
What just happened?
I was trying something new, and apparently it wasn't reset from before, and then I just made it worse. So we're all good now. Though.
Okay.
We're all good.
So in March we released Sergeant Titanica.
Yep.
And the Green Fury unit blister, and Globicus and the first Waste unit blister. So we introduced 2 new factions with a monster and units.
Yes.
Okay? So this next month, April is weirder because it's a 3-monster month. There are no units coming out in April.
I just touched my face. Go ahead.
Don't touch your face. Especially don't touch my face. I'm going to put the vampire you over here. Okay, so the first monster that's coming out, if I remember the order I gave them to Tony in, is a giant fish. Tony just gave me a loser symbol. I'm offended.
Let's give you an L.
I get it. So anybody who's been paying attention to Monsterpocalypse, the Tritons were introduced last year with Krakenoctus.
Yes.
And then they got their units in
We saw the Psy eels
January.
and the steel shell crabs.
Yeah. So this is their second monster, Leviathan, the giant armored hammerhead shark. So the first thing that is obvious about this monster is his health goes to 13.
He does.
We've never gone to 13 before. We've gone to 12. There's a lot of 11s.
And we've got monsters that can't take super damage or collision with buildings, so they're kind of higher health.
Kind of high health. But Leviathan is being tanky because Leviathan's a big armored shark monster. Leviathan is being tanky by just having a bunch of health.
Yep.
So there's a couple other things that make Leviathan weirdly tanky, but that's the first thing. So the other thing you'll notice is speed 5, just like Krakenoctus, these things kind of have to waddle around on the land, and they're not great at it.
No.
So, and then Def 7 kind of mitigates that health pool. So you can use your units to wear it down, just like Armadax. Lower defense on the alpha side of this monster. So the first weird thing, if you discount Life 13, that kind of stuff, the first weird thing is Bulwark. Playing around with actual kind of line of sight rules inside Monsterpocalypse. So Monsterpocalypse doesn't have traditional miniatures game line of sight. You're not like, draw a line from here to here. You just count spaces.
It's like a board game.
Yeah, so a tank can shoot through a building, units don't get in the way, monsters don't get in the way, nothing blocks line of sight. So Bulwark says you can't count ranges through this model. So he's a great big 2x2 block that will interfere with your ability to shoot past him because you can't count the spaces he's occupying.
You can still, if you're counting this a square directly in front of him, and then you can go cat-a-corner to the diagonal
square. You can go diagonal around him, but you can't go diagonal twice because you can't do two diagonals. So you can't shoot basically straight through him. So he's going to interfere with line of sight in a kind of abstract way.
That's pretty cool.
The other brand new ability on this monster is King Tide. So we didn't do any kind of unit synergy with Krakenoctus because Krakenoctus didn't have units to play with. But now that the eels and crabs are out, I wanted to do a faction synergy ability on a monster.
Makes sense.
So King Tide gives Tritons 2 bonuses. It gives them +1 speed all the time.
Okay.
So the crabs and eels just have +1 speed while Leviathan is in play. And it gives them +1 def if they're in water.
Okay.
So if you put your crabs, which can already go into water, if you put your crabs in one of those water spaces next to a building to help secure that building, it's going to make them even tougher to
because they'll have cover.
Because they'll have cover and +1 def, and they're already def 4. Nice. So they become ridiculous to take out from range.
Because they're base def 2 or 3.
They're base def 4.
Ooh, girl.
Because they're basically G tanks that don't shoot. So their def goes way up.
So they're just straight up def 6.
They're def 6 if they're in water. They're hiding in water.
Well, with cover.
With cover, they're def 6, so you can't shoot them.
Wow.
So just go after the building. At that point, the building might be def 6, depending on which building it is. So that's the faction synergy bonus that Leviathan's bringing. Leviathan also has giant crazy buck teeth, so I gave him crunch, which says if an action die rolls a super strike, which is the double, it's super damage. So you got a little bit of a chance, no matter what he's doing, if he's squirting water out of his mouth or trying to throw you into a building, his teeth might just get you.
Nice.
And then he has giant, crazy giant webbed hands. So I gave him chain reaction, which says when he smacks a unit, it hits more units than just that one unit. And he's got pretty standard attack stats. He's got 5 boost dice in his brawl, and he's got a blast attack. It's not a great blast attack, but it's a blast attack. And Krakenoctus doesn't have one.
Better than
until he goes hyper.
Krakenoctus just wants to throw things anyway.
Yeah. And then he's got a pretty standard power attack.
Okay.
So that's Alpha Leviathan. A little bit weird, but not that weird. And then his hyper mode, he keeps Bulwark, he keeps Crunch,
He loses the benefit.
he loses King Tide
Yeah.
because he uses that water energy to speed himself up. So he goes from speed 5 to speed 6.
And Def 7 to Def 8.
And Def 7 to Def 8. He keeps Chain Reaction. He gets Precision Strike. So if you're trying to get that Crunch to work, he's got reroll 1 white die. So
Nice.
if you add all 7 white dice and it still doesn't work, then you have one little tiny chance to maybe get it. And then he has Penetrator on his power attack because he's got those pokey fingers.
Okay.
So when he tries to throw you or whatever, it's easier for him to jab you with his fingers. So effectively, he's kind of got 6 boost dice on his power attacks, and he has 6 boost dice on his brawl. So he's pretty good at brawling and power attacking in this mode.
Aside from the Bulwark ability, he's actually a pretty straightforward monster.
He's a very, very straightforward monster. He's just got a little bit of weird things going on, and then he's got a crap ton of health.
Right, he's just really versatile, right? Like he can shoot you, he's good at doing all the normal monster stuff that you can do. A little bit of a unit buff in the beginning, but yeah, I think this is probably on the easier side to pick up, with the one exception being Bulwark being a little
Now,
strange.
the chat is asking if Bulwark stops you from attacking him, and it doesn't. It's written weird, but it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, and these cards haven't gone to print yet, so they're like any of those kind of things that are clarification things. I'm going to do one more pass on for proving.
Okay.
Okay.
Giant shark monster
So
seems
giant
pretty
hammerhead
rad.
bucktooth shark monster.
Is his blast, he's shooting water?
He's shooting water.
Okay, is that on the card like where it points to the little and names the
No,
weapons
he
and
doesn't.
stuff?
No, it points to his fingers and his eyes and.
I thought one was on his mouth.
It's pointing.
Oh,
at
he's pointing on his teeth.
His tooth plate.
So, are you saying officially, canonically, it's a water jet, or can I make up whatever I
You
want?
can make up whatever you want.
Because in my mind, it's a spray of license plates.
Sure.
Just license plates off G-tanks.
He's been eating a lot of. I don't think tanks have license plates. But okay, he's been eating a lot of stuff and he's spitting it back out at you.
Yep.
Sure. You control the narrative. That's why Brawl and Blast are labeled Brawl and Blast, because they're punching and kicking and slapping and biting and whatever.
Yeah.
Or spitting or lasers. Maybe you decide yours has laser eyes. You know, sharks with lasers. It's very popular. Okay, so let's move on to the Destroyer's monster, the first Destroyer's monster for this month. And that is Blastic Header.
That boy has been going to the gym.
So yeah, Blastic Header is pretty beefy. He's got 4 pecs.
He does?
He does. Yeah, he's got two chests. He diverges at the waist into 2 chests that are bolted together.
Oh.
It's really kind of gross.
Why?
Because why not? So Blastic Header is the second Subterran Uprising monster. We had Hammerclack when we had Kraken Octus. So this is Blastic Header, and just like Leviathan gives a little bit of synergy bonuses, then so does this model to the moles that came out back in January.
Okay.
So the first thing is Earthworks. It's not a great big giant bonus, but if the little moles are near this big guy, they have a brawl defense bonus.
Okay.
So they're a little bit more fighty, and they'll fight you more, and you can't just walk up and punch them.
Okay,
So
and that's not board wide. They've got to be.
It's just within, I believe, 3 spaces.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, within 3 spaces.
So he's tearing the ground up, and you got.
So he's like kicking up dirt, or just making them angrier, or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the first thing he does. Just a little bit of a unit buff, just to make some Subterran units a little bit better.
So he's got 2 actions, and he's got
He
double
does.
duty, which says he can
So-
do 2 different actions.
Yeah. So I wanted to play around with actions with this guy because he has 2 heads, and I wanted to have that like he's more thinky than Hammerclack a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
And the moles are all kind of like Hammerclack starts out sneaky with cloak and that kind of stuff, and then gets really angry, just beats you up.
Sure.
So I wanted to kind of also play with that theme on this model.
Okay.
So in Alpha, he's a little bit more schemy.
Okay.
And he has 2 heads, and his heads can tell different people to do different things.
He's like the Sturm and Drang of mole monsters.
He's a little bit like a Sturm and Drang.
Okay.
So he has Action Blitz, which can tell a unit to advance.
Which is great.
So a unit that adjacent to him can advance, so he can speed things up.
Just get on that PowerPoint.
Yep. And that is an allied unit, so it doesn't require faction.
Cool.
So any of the destroyer unit you want to move.
Oh, yeah.
And then he has Extinguisher, because we put extra fire in the game recently. If
Sure.
anybody isn't paying attention, January was Incinerus and a whole bunch of fire. So Action Extinguisher lets you play around fire a little bit. He can kick dirt onto fires, basically.
Oh, is that what he's doing?
Yeah, it's a good utility power, and if you want to use Blitz, Double duty means your extinguisher doesn't get used up. You can still extinguish her if you need to. You can do both those things.
You know, I see he's got a new, is that a new ability, cut power?
Cut power is a new ability.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've had lots of conversations with people about brawl attacks on monsters in Monsterpocalypse in general, because the brawl attacks are usually your backup. You want to power attack someone. You want to throw them, body slam them, swat something. You want to do that kind of stuff. Brawling usually isn't that important unless you just want to punch a building to get power dice for your other monster.
Or just punch a unit because you just need the
punch
power
a
die
unit
off of it.
just to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
So cut power is a really interesting utility ability on his brawl attack.
And he loses a power die for every super strike you roll?
The person you target,
Yeah.
you pull off power dice for every super strike.
On any of the dice?
On any dice. Now the super strike is 1 in 6, so you can easily roll an attack that rolls no super strikes. But you can also roll attacks that roll 4 super strikes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're rolling max whites here, you're rolling it's 1 in 6 across all dice types.
Yes, it's 1 in 6 on every die.
If you're rolling just the base 9, throw a couple power die in there, you're probably getting at least 2.
You're probably getting a couple.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the trade-off of, do you want to punch the monster for 1 damage, but rip a bunch of its power dice off? Maybe, depending on your luck. So it's just an interesting optional ability that says, maybe you want to punch a monster with this guy every once in a while. It might happen. So he's also got 11 health. He's pretty standard in the health department.
Sure.
He has 6 on this side.
He's got high mobility, which is great.
And he's a mole monster, so he's got high mobility with speed 6 and def 8. So he's pretty average when it comes to monster stats for a lot of other stuff.
Sure.
So then we go to his hyper side, and he loses Blitz, but he keeps Extinguisher. Okay. He also keeps Earthworks.
So he keeps his unit buff the whole time.
He keeps that little unit buff because it's a narrow.
Yeah, it's not as strong as the
buff.
King Tide like on the Shark.
And then he gets Energy Cycle, which is kind of also a mole theme, because Energy Cycle is anytime you roll more than 2 or more white dice and hit, you get one back.
Yep.
And Hammerclack has the same ability. He keeps Cut Power, but then he gets his 2-head thing goes from 2 actions to using both weapons at the same time.
Okay.
So he gets Follow Through. So if he hits you with his saw, which is the big thing sticking out at you that you can't quite see behind the brawl attack on the card, is a big chainsaw. Okay. The other thing hiding behind his special rules is a big fusion cannon arm. So he's got a gun and a melee weapon.
Who built these moles?
Mole people built them.
How do they have fusion cannons?
They have access to uranium because they're underground.
If you have the technology to put a fusion cannon on a giant mole, why do you give him 2 sets of pecs?
Why not? Why not? He likes to lift.
Mad scientist.
Okay, so Follow Through is the signature ability on the Hyperform. It says if you hit with this attack, you can immediately make the other kind of attack. So if you want to try to go for that cut power, but also use your gun on something in the same turn, you can do that. And if you want to shoot something first and then punch something just as a bonus, like you can always punch a unit just to get it out of your way and also shoot a unit. Or you can punch a building and shoot a building, or you can punch a monster, shoot a monster. He's got a lot of things, but he has to hit with one ability, one attack to trigger the next one.
A little typo here for anybody watching at home. This is not Hammerclack, even though it says Hammerclack at the top of the card.
Yeah. There's a little typo on there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that one. I caught all the other typos.
But just want people, because the alpha version, could you go back one, Tony?
Yeah, does the alpha version say Blastic Header? I'm pretty sure it does.
Yeah, so Blastic.
It does.
Okay, good.
Okay, so I proofed the name on the front, and then when I flipped it over, I just looked at abilities and I didn't pay attention.
So that'll get fixed.
Yeah, that'll get fixed.
Okay.
Okay, so that is Blastic Header. Pretty standard, weird mole monster with some options.
2 pecs.
4 pecs.
4 pecs. 2 sets of pecs.
2 sets of pecs.
2 heads, 2 sets of pecs.
The other thing that comes out
Only
next
one
month,
butt.
Yeah, only one butt.
Yeah.
2 cheeks though, not 3 cheeks. Anyway, the other thing that comes out that next month is weird. It's the weirdest thing we've maybe ever released for Monsterpocalypse. It's Megaton Mashup.
I don't know. That's the weirdest thing we've ever released for Monsterpocalypse.
It is co-op mode.
Yeah. Which is great.
For Monpoc.
I wouldn't say that's weird. I think that's awesome.
I know, but I mean, normally it's monster unit, map, monster unit. Like it's been pretty standard since the game came out that we're adding more types of models to play with and more battlefields to play on with buildings and maps and stuff.
And
this is a whole different mode.
And it's awesome that you've got your co-op mode coming out for Monsterpocalypse, which you're the lead on.
Yeah.
And in 2 months after Malvin and Mayhem Boss Fight comes out, which is the co-op mode for Riot Quest, and so
and they work completely differently.
Oh yeah, they're totally different.
Yeah. So what's most important in Megaton Mashup is that Gallamaxis, the Necroscourge evil space dragon thing
Yes.
from space.
Yeah, with a
comes
scorpion
out.
tail.
Yeah, it's got a lot of elements. Crazy knife arms, jetpack situation. Tony's having problems making images show up.
So tell us
He's
how
trying to Jedi mind trick his computer right now.
tell us how co-op. Do you have the general gist of how does co-op mode in Monpoc work?
So, there it is. So I was going to explain how co-op mode works by showing off the cards that Tony showed off earlier in the stream.
Oh, so we want to go through Gallamaxis.
So we're going to do Gallamaxis, and then we're going to do some example cards.
Cool.
So Gallamaxis is a Necroscourge monster. So that's a destroyer faction, and they're brand new. The Necroscourge are like a classic sci-fi like nanite swarm in space that eats things and reconstitutes them.
Sure, yeah, of course.
So Gallamaxis was the hero of the Draken Armada. The Draken Armada is the faction coming out this summer.
The Space Dragons.
Space Dragons
Yeah.
on the Protector side. So Gallamaxis sacrificed himself to fight off probably the Necroscourge, but also Planet Eaters might have been involved because Planet Eaters are out in space eating everything like they do. So Gallamaxis sacrificed himself, drifted off into space, much like an 80s cartoon hero would do.
Yeah.
And then he was found by the Necroscourge, and they took him apart and put him back together, and then he's like now leading their push into our solar system.
So even though we're talking about Gallamaxis right now, let's say in the future there's another Necroscourge monster. It won't necessarily be another space dragon.
Yeah, it can be anything.
It could be an evil monkey,
It could be.
like a necro monkey.
It could be.
That's great.
It could be. It could be a Martian spaceship they ate and reconstituted. So this is going to let us play around in like we've got a lot of kaiju tropes like giant lizards, giant monkeys, whatever. But this lets us play around with the tropes inside Monsterpocalypse.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could also have a monkey, half lizard thing. Like we could do anything.
Oh, like they got part
Like
of
they
a
found-
pterosaur and part of a
Yeah, they found two things that were fighting and killed each other
and
then
just
they,
slapped them together.
like that. Okay, so
I'm in.
Gallamaxis. First thing to notice, he flies. He's speed 7. He can get around.
That's good.
It gets worse, by the way, and worse means better. Okay,
Sure.
So he has 11 health. He also has Demolisher. He likes knocking down buildings.
Yep.
So he gets power dice when he knocks down buildings. He has Munch because he can also like his weird nanites can absorb the energies of things he kills.
Okay.
So if he kills units, he heals himself. So he's got kind of maybe a little bit more health than 11, maybe. And then he has Explosion on his blast, so he can take out swaths of units from a little bit of range if he needs to.
The nanas like pour out and like tear apart like the G tank he just ate and then reconstitute him with it. That's like Jason X.
A little bit.
Yeah, okay.
A little bit.
I'm in.
Yeah. And he's got like this weird like tooth chest with these nodules that are probably the nanites swarm out of there and come back in. Yeah. I believe Jordan painted it all like kind of galactic, like it's got like almost stars and stuff in it.
Oh, sweet.
Because the concept art was maybe these are clear and you can see into them and there's like a whole bunch of like, nanite stuff sparkling in there and stuff. So it kind of looks like space inside of his chest.
I'm in. That's
So
awesome.
this side of him is pretty straightforward. He's a fast monster. He's got pretty good health. He's got a couple of interesting abilities that interact with what he attacks. He likes attacking monsters and units. He can take out units in a pile.
Sure.
And he flies. And then he goes hyper, and things get crazy.
Okay.
So the first thing I'm going to point out is Inner Fire is your suggestion.
Yeah.
So if you don't like Inner Fire, complain to William Hungerford at williamhungerford.com.
That website does not exist.
So you'll notice the first thing on his special rules is an action that gives him power dice. He just says, I don't have enough power dice right now. I'm gonna do an action to give myself some power dice. The second thing you'll notice is he has Action Overdrive. Now everyone who's been playing Interceptors from Shadow Sun loves Action Overdrive because it says move again, your full speed. So Gallamaxis can take an action and move 14 spaces.
Yes. So
that's kind of fast.
where Inner Fire came from, where I suggested is you were telling me about Overdrive, and Overdrive was on him.
Yeah, we had Overdrive. We had tested a few other actions for him to take. One of them was he can attack a second time and that kind of stuff. I wanted something that says trade an action for a really powerful ability.
Yes.
And we were trying to balance basically not giving him too much power, like extra attacks and stuff can sometimes be really powerful.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, that's where Inner Fire came from. Was what is as good as getting a full second like move at your max speed, and it was it's kind of almost like a second activation. So why not let him just refill half of his power pool by the time he's in hyper?
Yeah.
It gives him a constant comeback mechanic if he does get knocked down to your last monster and you're starved for power. This is a monster that cannot get starved for power unless you're dying.
The other really, really cool thing about it is often in a 2-monster game, your first monster activates, tries to knock a building down to get you those couple of power dice you need to throw the other monster. He's just like, I got your back. I handle it. 1 action die. Bam, 5 power dice. Done. But what balances out the 2 ridiculously powerful actions he has
is red line.
So you'll notice he only has 5 hit points on this side. So he's 11 hit points total. But some of those hit points are fake because he's probably going to give up a couple of them to move really fast or to get power dice.
Yes.
Generally, he's going to trade a hit point or 2 over the course of the game to get 5 power dice once or twice. But if he needs to chase someone down, like there's a lot of, we've played these games on stream where I'm like, aha, I moved this far away, you don't have enough dice to step over and throw me in this building, I'm safe. Calamaxis just says, whatever.
Yeah, he just
and
gets
just flies halfway across the map at you. The map is 19 by 17, and he can move 14 spaces in 1 turn, not including stepping. The Galamaxis can do whatever he wants anywhere on the board.
And that was the other part of the conversation when you asked me, you were looking for a power that was very strong and was equivalent of giving up a health on the hyper side. Like when you're already almost out of the game, what's worth 1 health? And I was like, does this side have any healing mechanics? And you were like, it does not. And I was like, okay. So what's worth 1 health? 5 power dice is worth 1 health when you've only got 4 to spend, because if you spend the last one, you die.
So then he keeps explosion on his blast attack. But then he gets penetrator on his brawl and his power attacks. So he's pretty good at brawling you and he's pretty good at power attacking you. Now he doesn't have a way to do inherent double damage. Like most monsters have a super damage ability or a punch twice ability or something that says in desperate times they can just hit you twice. He doesn't have that because he's got other desperate times kind of stuff. He's got you can't hide from me and I will always have power dice.
Correct. The thing is, it's very easy to screen against him because he has no. If you set up a screen and he's the last monster, he has no way to get up there and make these amazing power attacks. He just has to blast you or brawl.
But it's always difficult to screen all 4 sides of your monster.
It is, but a lot of monsters can still get around it with lightning strike and stuff like that. He just does not have an answer to that.
He does not do that. He does other things.
He looks really strong.
Yeah, he's a weird thing to wrap your brain around, because if you come into hyper with all 5 hit points, you have a lot of options. But if that attack that sends you into hyper knocks you down to 3,
you don't.
You've got a move or power dice because you probably don't want to put yourself at 1 hit point. So it just depends. And he has that munch in alpha, so he can stay in alpha a little bit longer maybe than other monsters. So
he also really hates grapplers.
He also really hates grapplers. Kind of everybody hates grapplers.
Yeah, but
that's
this
why
guy,
there's only like 3 grapplers in the game.
But when you've got this level of mobility between the flight, the overdrive, and the speed 7 high mobility, like you just hate grapplers. Like they ruin so many of your plans.
That's why grappler only exists on like 3 models, and they're all monsters.
Sure. All right,
and they're all monsters who don't have. Well, one's a monster that has high mobility, but none of them have flight.
Correct. None of them have flight.
Okay, so that is the monsters.
Now he comes in this
Megaton mashup,
the new co-op box set. So for people wondering, like, how does co-op work?
Okay, so there's a deck of cards in there.
Okay.
There's also a rule sheet, so it has its own rule sheet. And the third component that makes it work is there's a bonus health card that goes up to 12.
Okay.
So when you play a Megaton mashup game, you're gonna pick an enemy monster. You can pick Galamaxis, he comes in the box.
But any monster.
So if you only at this point own 2 other monsters, then you get Galamaxis, that's your bad guy monster to play against. Then you decide how hard you want the game to be.
Okay.
How much bonus health you want each side of the monster to have. So Galamaxis has 11. If you set him to 6, which is the recommended middle of the road, because the stat card goes to 12, that means he has 6 bonus hyper and 6 bonus alpha health.
Okay, so just a straight up bonus 12.
Yes, he just has 12 extra health.
Okay.
Now he's going to need that health to a certain extent because he's not that smart, because he's being ran by an AI deck not by a player.
Before we get into playing, you said it's how many monsters on the co-op team?
So that was what I was about to get to.
Okay.
So the co-op team is you make a 1 monster force with 1 monster and 10 units.
Okay.
And I do the same thing.
Okay.
But then our units form 1 reserve.
Okay.
And you can play destroyers and protectors on the same team.
Sure.
So you build a destroyer force, I build a protector force, then our units, our 20 units, are a pile of units that either one of us can use.
Can I play solo?
You can play solo.
Okay.
It works perfectly fine solo.
You're just playing both sides of
You're just playing both sides.
Okay.
And you start on opposite sides of the map.
Yeah.
Because you have your own action dice and power dice and that kind of stuff to track. Now the other thing that makes the game harder, in addition to that villain, is what we call the monster in this mode, that's the AI monster, it having extra health is you have less action dice. You have 6 per player instead of 10.
Oh, okay.
So your turns are going to be a little shorter. But the cool thing about the comboed reserves is that when you take a unit turn, all the models on the board and the reserves are your models.
Oh, so
if you have units on your power points and I have units on my power points, when I power up,
you get all
I get all those power points.
But when it's my turn and it's my unit turn, I can move units you spawned?
You can move any unit on the table and you can spawn any unit from the reserves.
Nice.
So you also get a chance, since this is the first time you can play destroyers and protectors together, you get a chance to play around with some unit combos that we've never had in the game before. Because it's co-op mode and it doesn't really matter if we just mix and match a little bit. And then the deck of cards. So there is a deck of 32 cards, I believe, if my memory serves. And each of those cards is an activation for the monster and possible bonus activations. And there are 3 types.
So before you get into that, what is the round structure? Is it player 1 goes, player 2 goes, monster goes?
No,
Okay.
player, villain, player, villain, player, villain.
Okay, so if you play solo,
Yeah.
you can just go, I do this, then you, and it's even unit turns, right? Like
Yeah,
if a player takes a unit turn.
Standard Monsterpocalypse rules, you can take a unit turn or a monster turn.
when your turn's over-
your turn. But as soon as your turn's over,
Villain turn.
you draw a card.
Okay.
And then you do whatever the card says, and then the other player takes a turn and then draws a card.
Okay.
So yeah.
Got it.
So there are 3 kinds of cards: attack cards, movement cards, and power-up cards. We're going to look at attack cards first.
Okay.
And as long as hey, look at that. So the little I took a bite out of your cookie icon in the top left corner is the attack icon. So if you ever draw one of these cards, you know it's an attack card. These cards kind of have stats on them. You don't use the speed of the villain on its stat card. You move it based on the cards you draw.
Okay.
So the card might move the villain 6, might move the villain 10, might move the villain whatever.
Yeah.
So if the card moves the villain, there will be a stat for the speed.
Okay.
Then you use the boost dice of the villain's card. So if you're using Hammerclack, he's got 6 boost dice on his brawl in hyper mode. But you roll as many dice for the power and the action dice as the card is printed. So when you make the beatback attack with the villain, you roll 5 white dice, 5 red dice, and then however many blue dice the villain's stat card says.
Do you resolve any special abilities that are on the monsters?
You do.
Okay.
You do.
So if somebody has fling on a brawl.
So, or if you have munch or something.
Yeah.
And the card targets units with a brawl attack, then that still triggers that ability.
Okay.
So beatback is just pretty standard. People have seen beatback in Monsterpocalypse before. The card, you move the villain first. It moves toward the target monster.
With the most power dice?
So in this case, it's the most power dice.
Okay.
The first card you draw that has a target monster is the target monster for that activation. Because you can draw multiple cards, because sometimes you'll draw the card and it'll say, if this card doesn't do anything, draw another card. But the very first card you draw determines which of the 2 monsters this guy's going after.
Okay.
It doesn't. Every card doesn't do it, because then it would bounce back and weird. You get some weird.
Like beatback says, if the villain's not adjacent to the target monster, draw a card.
Yeah.
So if you drew Hurt Locker after, even though that one's target says farthest, you would still be targeting.
Use most power dice because that's the first card you drew.
Yeah, that way he's not like ping-ponging all over the place.
So beatback says advance the villain toward the target monster. So the first, like if the villain's 10 spaces away, he moves 6 spaces toward the target monster. Then if he's adjacent to the target, he does a thing, and if he's not adjacent to the target, he does a thing.
If monsters have flight, high mobility,
All that stuff still counts.
Okay.
So any kind of rules that affect their movement or that kind of stuff still happens.
do they ever end up attacking units in this? Do they ever?
There are unit attack cards in here. We're gonna
So,
and there's a power-up that just destroys units.
So for somebody that might want to know, say that you have a monster that has fling on its brawl.
Yeah.
And you walk up and you punch a unit by the card.
Yeah.
What do you fling at?
You fling depending on the card, and then there's core rules in the in the regular rules.
Got it. So either the card will tell you or a baseline rule will tell you.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So Hurt Locker is another example. It attacks the farthest of the two good guy monsters, basically, even though one's probably a destroyer. And in this one, you're going to look for the monster. In the core rules, it says the monster is going to try to align with its target first, because a lot of cards do power attacks and stuff. So if you do, then you body slam or throw something into maximum collisions, which means it hits the most things and does the most damage.
Yeah, because you don't want to play the monster dumb. You want the monster
Yeah.
to try and win, right? To make this a challenge.
And if the villain can only get adjacent, then it's going to punch the target twice.
Nice.
And remember, it's not spending white dice, it's just rolling the dice on the card.
Yeah.
So it gets those dice every time it attacks. And then if it's not adjacent to the target after it moves, you draw a card and you add power dice to the next attack it makes that turn. So you can have turns where you draw a card and it says, move the monster, nothing, get some power dice. Or you could have a turn where you draw the card and it says, move the monster, body slam the target, whatever, and it's done.
And this one says, add 2 power dice to the next attack. This makes this activation, right?
Yeah.
Are there any that have that monster store power dice for any reason?
You don't track any kind of power dice.
So it's like Gorgadra with Riled, right?
Yeah.
In his hyper form, if he ends up getting punched,
you don't interact with power dice at all for the villain.
Okay.
Because these cards give you a lot more power dice than you would generally have if you were playing this monster as an actual monster.
Okay.
Okay. So that's attack cards. That's 2 example attack cards. We're going to go to movement cards next. And Tony's making it work.
Tony's hand motions behind the camera right now.
So charge.
Tony does this when he's putting new things up.
So charge is just a pretty straightforward card. If you draw this card first, it says the target monster is the one with the most power dice.
Got it.
Then you move the villain toward that monster. And then instead of just drawing a normal card, which might be a bully or something else, you draw until you find an attack card. So this card I wanted the deck to be a little bit unpredictable and you not be able to card count and be like, well, so we've drawn 90% of the deck. I know what the 2 cards are in there. Because if charge comes up, then you don't know exactly how many other cards are going to get burned
over,
through, basically. And there's 2 cards that shuffle the deck after you play them.
Okay.
So it's a little unpredictable and no kind of perfect card counting of I know exactly what's going to happen, because you never know exactly. So charge is pretty straightforward. Bully is one of those cards that targets units.
Okay.
So it's speed 8, which is really fast, but it Pac-Mans through units on the table.
So villain makes a brawl attack that automatically hits each adjacent unit.
Yeah. So if it's standing next to a unit, it automatically just punches all the units and touching it.
It moves towards the closest unit.
Yeah.
And repeat this process until it has moved 8 spaces or there are no more units in play.
So if it's standing next to a unit, it smashes that unit, then it walks to another unit and it smashes that unit, and then it walks to another unit and smashes that unit. And it can do that as long as it's still got those 8 movement left.
But it hits all adjacent ones.
It just hits all adjacent units.
So if it walks,
And it doesn't have to roll or anything. It just walks up and is like,
so
you guys
if
are gone.
it moves 1 and it's aligned, there's 2.
Yeah.
It kills both.
Yeah.
And then it moves 3 more and it ends up next to 2. It just kills both of them.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
And then it's still got movement left if there are units. Now this can make it run in weird patterns and stuff, because the core rules say that the monster will avoid walking into hazards and stuff if it...
Yeah, I assume it's not going to go back and forth between fire and just kill itself.
Yeah.
What's the point of that?
Yeah, but if you're playing with Gallimaxis or another flying monster, it doesn't care about that fire. It'll just hover over it. So there's a couple of examples of some movement cards.
Okay, and there's a third type.
And there's a third type called Power-Up. So Power-Up cards do weird things.
I like weird things.
So Gorge says if the villain's adjacent to a building, it smashes the building.
Okay.
And everything around the building gets like hit. It's kind of like Demolisher and stuff, sort of.
Okay.
If it's not adjacent to a building, it walks over to the building and punches it, but it doesn't punch it as hard so it doesn't hurt the things around it.
Okay.
And then either way, if it knocked a building down, it heals itself for 2, because it eats the building a little bit.
Okay.
And remember, it could have +6 health.
And it's speed infinite.
It is not. It is 4 spaces.
Oh.
The asterisk speed means read the ability.
Oh.
That's not an infinity symbol. That's an asterisk.
I know. I was just setting you up to explain that.
I know. And then if for some reason you did not destroy a building with this card, you just draw a new card. So this is one of those cards that might be, okay, I drew the card, he's not within 4 spaces. He still walks 4 spaces toward the closest building, but then he didn't get to a building, so we just put that card away and we draw another card.
So basically, every turn he's going to do something.
He's going to do something.
He or she.
Yes.
Because Sergeant Titanicus could be
You could have Sergeant Titanica as your villain, just running around punching stuff.
bullying meat slaves.
Yeah. Now, there is a thing in the rule book that talks about difficulty, because you control basically the difficulty in a couple of different ways. First of all, you get to pick the number of health, and you can have your monster have 24 bonus health if you really want a challenge. But you can also pick whatever monster you want. And if you pick monsters that rely on actions, like if you pick Ares Mothership, Ares has got abduct and manufacture and that kind of stuff. Ares is not going to be as dangerous as a monster as like Gorgadra is.
Sure.
Because Gorgadra's got super damage on Brawl and Hyper and stuff. So you can try out lots of different options for, well, we want to play the hardest monster possible. So we're going to take the monster that's the most offensive, most straightforward punching power and give it 24 extra hit points and go crazy.
What is one of the hardest monsters you've fought in the playtest?
So Gorgadra is pretty rough.
I'm going to say Armadax sounds like a real pain.
Armadax is a bit of a pain.
Because he's so hard to damage, and then you got health regen cards.
Yeah, there's only like there's maybe 4 health regen cards in the entire deck, maybe only 2.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my
But
head.
still, they exist.
But Armadax is going to be a little bit hard to do. But keep in mind, you're going to take unit turns. Armadax has low def.
Sure.
Units can pick away.
I was just like, I'm interested to know what the difficulty scale of monsters in this mode ends up kind of shaking out to be.
Yeah. And I think the other really cool thing about this mode is it gives you a lot of flexibility and freedom to play. Like you can min-max your army perfectly and then play against a really easy villain.
Sure.
Or you could take just fun units that you just want to try out and play against the hardest villain you can think of. So there's a lot of options for what kind of game do we want right now, and it doesn't take a long time to play a Megaton matchup.
You've played the Riot Quest boss fight, and it's a similar thing. While the boss is specifically that model, it's Mountain of Mayhem, and any future bosses we put out, it says in the strategy to change your difficulty level and your experience, try different crews. Right? It's like if you want to go in, which is the hardest hitting crew that you know is really good against this boss because of their specific cards and their boss deck, do that. But like, maybe try all specialists. And just see if like Widget and Co. can take it down. And you could do the same thing here.
One of the other interesting things about this mode, since we're not tracking power dice, if you have a unit on a negative zone, when you draw a card, you can return that unit to the reserves to draw 2 cards and resolve the one you want.
Okay, cool.
So having units on power zones gives you a little bit of manipulation, but that's why Wave of Minions exists. So if the Wave of Minions card gets drawn, you destroy a secured building that's farthest from the villain, so a building it's not going to get to anytime soon, if it's secured, and then all the assets and the units adjacent to that building also get destroyed. So it just like smashes something really far away, because a wave of whatever, chompers or something, sweeps through and destroys
G-tanks roll up.
And if there's no building being secured, you destroy the unit farthest from the villain and all the units adjacent to it. So like if there's no secured buildings, but there is a unit way across the board on a negative zone, then that card will sometimes deal with it. And if this card does not destroy a building, you draw another card.
Sure.
So you could get 2 Wave of Minion cards in a row if your deck was shuffled badly, and it could destroy the unit 2 units really far away from it, all that kind of stuff.
So Tony communicates with us during the stream via text, and he wrote, "Are these the only 6 cards in the deck?" But at the beginning of this, we did say it was a 32 card deck.
But he's played your game, your boss mode fight, which is only a few cards.
It's like 11 or 12.
It's like 11.
But they function very differently.
No, but this deck is 32 cards.
Are they all singles, or do we have any duplicates?
There are duplicates of most cards.
Okay.
So like we looked earlier how we had a card that said most power dice was the target. There's a second copy of that card in the deck that says least power dice. A couple of them, like Gorge doesn't have a duplicate, I'm pretty sure. But almost all the cards, there's 2 versions, so that you also can't necessarily predict, we drew Hurt Locker. but there's 2 hurt lockers, and one is closest, one's farthest, or whatever. They're usually closest, farthest, most powered ice, less powered ice.
They're not exactly the same.
Yeah, but they're exactly the same in functionality, but their targeting is different.
Tony, have you played the co-op mode on this in Monpoc? Were you among the playtesters?
He was.
He was. Just real fast, because we just want to know, do you prefer this or the Riot Quest boss fight?
I'm having mic problems right now.
No, he's having mic problems.
Microphone problems. He doesn't want to yell his answers across the entire studio. So yeah. So Megaton Mashup gives you a way to play Monsterpocalypse with friends that might not be into the competitive angles of the game, or to teach your friend who's never played it before. Like, we're going to work together. We're going to do, this is not exactly how the game works, but it's going to teach you how tax rolls and that kind of stuff work. And it gives you all that freedom of like, a lot of our playtest games, we played Sky Sentinel and Defender X with all guard units versus Gorgadra, to kind of replay the beginning of Monsterpocalypse when the Comet Shard hits Chicago and the guard shows up to fight Gorgadra.
Right.
So you can also do those kind of things where you're like, we're going to challenge ourselves to only play with guard units versus a really powerful monster, and we're going to give him +8 health or whatever.
And so this all the cards, the new rules you need, and Galamex is all one big box.
It's in Megaton Mashup,
And
which is a release for next month.
Is it in the next month?
Most of our release dates have been toward the end of the month, but I don't really know off the top of my head what the release date is.
Okay, cool.
So yeah. So next month in Monsterpocalypse is 3 monsters. A Triton, which now there's 2 Triton monsters in 1 unit pack, so you can technically play mono faction 2 monster Tritons if you buy enough crabs and eels.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to?
Yeah. Same thing for Subterrans, the mole
Can you
stuff.
put crawfish out as one of the unit types?
I mean, the crab is not that different from a crawfish. You could putty on little tails.
They're totally different.
You could putty on little tails.
They're totally different creatures.
They are. I mean, they both have pinchers, and they both have disgusting mouth parts.
Yeah, you need little flame-throwing crawfish.
Well, I would argue the Scorchers are almost flame-throwing crawfish.
They're not.
They're kind of the same shape.
So is that everything you wanted to hit up?
This whole shape. Yeah, I think so. I think that's all the releases I got to talk about.
So a couple things, everybody. Come hit us up tomorrow with Jordan Lamb for Get Your Paint On. Next week on Dev Chat, we should be going over some new Riot Quest models, both their Riot Quest rules and gear, and their current in-testing War Machine rules. I believe that's going to be Wastelander, Four Horsemen, and Flubbin. So we should get our first look at all those next Wednesday. Obviously, all streams subject to change. If we here in Washington receive any shelter-in-place orders, in which case we'll let all of you know. And don't forget, you have 60 hours left on the Warcaster Kickstarter. We're almost at 400K, so if you want to go check it out, now is your opportunity. Till then, everybody, stay safe, be well, and we will see you all tomorrow on Get Your Paint On. Goodbye.
Yeah, still 61 hours technically. Because
snap.
whenever we looked at that, it was less than an hour. But yeah, hopefully we don't get locked down.